got a few notes. I came across a quote in the Speaker's Guide which said, "Meaning is found in our words and supported by our body and carried by the voice. And when all these things come together or speak together, you will make an impact on your audience." And I thought that was very true, that all these assignments are words which need to be organised and presented in a certain way in order to get across the meaning of our words. And the voice is the most powerful tool. So this speech, which is about using your voice effectively, is really quite an important one. Because it doesn't matter what our speech is about, what the content is. If we're not using our voice effectively, then we're not going to get our message across. And the speech and the words that we use should really impart some information, a message, or they should educate or persuade. And to help us to do this, we use gestures and body language and word pictures and all these things, and they add force to our message and illuminate the points. So those are the sort of things that I was looking for in this speech, and also the first elements of the it's F now, isn't it? F 1, 2, 3, 4 should be incorporated in it, because you're building up to having a speech which has got everything in it. So the first thing to do is say, was this speech well organised? Was there structure to it? Did it have a beginning, a middle and an end? Yes, I think it did. The title was interesting. I think we all wondered, what was coming next, and I think that immediately invokes a sort of mood and perhaps a way that we listen. So that was quite a good title to choose. And after that, when you're thinking what's coming next, I certainly wasn't expecting a sort of rundown of one's birthday parties over the years. Interesting though it was, I didn't really feel that it was a speech. It was more of a narrative, an anecdote, to say is all very interesting, but wasn't, for me, really fulfilling the purpose of this level of a speech. So the structure, whilst technically was there, beginning, middle and end, the structure of content in terms of what the speech was about, for me wasn't really there. But among the content there were certain technical elements. Certainly the speaker approached the lectern with an air of confidence and a certain amount of relaxation, but through the beginning of the speech particularly, there were times when sorry, yeah, got an itch now. Things that I think denote nervousness. They distracted from what was going on in the speech, and this is all fine in normal conversation, as in one having a conversation telling a story, but I don't think there's really a place for it in a prepared speech where you're trying to impart a message or impart information. We can see that it's all nice and relaxed, but for those who know a little bit better, it's a sign of nerves, and it is a distraction. I think it can distract the speaker as well and throw them off their train of thought. So if something comes up, ignore it. people don't really want to see that you've actually acknowledged it and dealt with it. They're here for your speech, to hear what you're saying. So there wasn't really a logical development in the middle part, I didn't feel. It was more narrative and just recounting what happened. Did she mean what she said? Not really convinced enough. It was true, I'm sure, and she felt it, but what message was she trying to say? What was she meaning to say to us with this story? And how convincing was it? There was good use of gestures and body language, good eye contact. She was very audible and articulate in what she was saying. And she did have a natural way of presenting. But for me, it was a bit too natural for a prepared speech. And I'm not sure how much preparation went into this. Whether it was, I'm just going to tell a story about my 3 birthdays, my 13th, 15th, 18th, whatever they were, or if there was a little bit more that went into it. The other skills that we're looking for at this level are vocabulary and word pictures. We had some of those. But I was a little bit distracted by the kind ofs, which is probably a mannerism of everyday speech, which is fine. That's your style. That's the way we do speak. But in a prepared speech, it doesn't really portray the message, I don't think. And there was also quite a few, too many for my liking. Rather than finishing or concluding a sentence, which again is okay in an anecdotal everyday speech, but not necessarily in a prepared speech. We're also looking for pace and pausing, and these are very effective ways of using your voice to get your point over, to emphasise your point, or to draw your audience in. And I think that there could be a little bit more work done on that. And also on the pace. There wasn't really any change in speed. It was all a little bit level. And these, again, there's lots of mechanisms that can be used to get your point over. And I would have liked to have seen a few more technical points like this to get over what was just a narrative for me, really. So what was the point of the speech? I don't think we really learned that until the end, where it seemed to be that, okay, it's my birthday tomorrow, and for once in my life I've decided that I'm not going to worry about how I feel or how anybody else feels or what went on. It's my choice. So it did link a little bit back to the beginning, but I think I Cried Yesterday could have been made a bit more of that. Could have been a bit more of an emotional speech. So the overall conclusion that I have is that this speaker is confident, but I feel she needs a little bit more practice at the technique of delivering a speech and really looking at what is involved in it. And I think it's probably something we can all do, is try and really discern the difference between giving a speech and having a chat. It's all right at the beginning to have a chat, to give you confidence to get up and speak in front of people. But there comes a time where we have to be passionate about something, and we have to grab our audience, and we have to get a message across. We have to persuade somebody to come and think along our lines of thinking. Or we have to dissuade them from doing something. And that takes a lot more thought and a lot more structure. And the easiest way to do that is to use your voice effectively. So I would say to this speaker, I'd like you to try again and take on some of these points and really think about, is this a narrative, is this a conversation, or is this a prepared speech with a good structure and a good logical development of thought? And I think that's the point, that's what we need to see in speeches at this level and above, is a good logical development of the speech rather than just a reporting of what went on. So there are some good points, but I think for this level the speaker needs to try and just work a little bit hard on some of the technical elements and look at really what was asked of this level of speech. You can clap now. Oh no.